Good morning. It's Sunday the 9th of March 2025, 10 a.m. and my name is Vox Populi and I'm here with our weekly review. We have a great bunch of stories for you today, starting with why you can't trust Gails but you can trust Jeremy Clarkson, and we'll be finishing off with some urgent dog related news and an appearance from our very own newshound Steve. We'll get started in a second, but first of all, make yourself a cup of tea, have a biscuit, because this is the weekly review. So, to begin with, in an amazing piece of investigative journalism from The Sun, Gails Bakery, one of London's bougiest and fastest growing food retail chains, has been caught binning bags full of sandwiches despite their promise to a zero food waste ethos within their stores. Turns out Gails aren't a fan of fridges, so every day when they make their fresh sandwiches and put them out on display for the public to purchase, the moment they hit the shelves, the clock starts ticking, and once they've been out there for a set and predetermined amount of time, the Gails staff run through, load them all up into plastic bags, take them out the back, and chuck them in the bin. So that's about as far as you can get away from zero food waste. The only real shock for this cynical old news hound is that anyone was shocked. We've got the government pushing electric vehicles, the batteries of which are mined by child slave labour in African hellholes. We've got rare earth minerals in everything we use, and none of those come from nice places. We closed down our last coal-fired power station a couple of months ago, almost exactly in time for China to open 3 more of their own. The fact that Gails is throwing away perfectly good food rather than giving it to the homeless, or, putting it in a fridge so it lasts a little bit longer, shouldn't shock anybody. We need to collectively get over the delusion that the likes of Gails cares one iota about the environment, one iota about the people, and one iota about anything other than what the bottom line looks like. The only thing worse than Gails in this scenario is the customers. Let's be frank. The only reason Gails made up such a preposterous lie in the first place was so that the ladies at lunch, driving their Chelsea tractors with little Tabitha and Tarquin at home, could feel virtuous about shopping in a bakery that doesn't waste any food. And these people are subliminally stupid themselves. They know, for example, that Gails is in no way an ethical choice. They know that Gails isn't a carbon neutral choice. When you're buying an avocado sandwich out of season for a fruit that doesn't even grow naturally in this country, you know that's being shipped halfway across the world so you can have your little yummy mummy lunch. So let's not delude ourselves into believing that anybody that shopped there thought they were making an ethical choice. And if you want to reduce food waste and you want to reduce the carbon footprint of where you get your food, Jeremy Clarkson's your answer. What you need is your local farm shop. You need local produce, locally produced, in season, by local labour. There is one significant and enduring way to make sure that the things you purchase are green and good for the planet, and that is to purchase things that are produced locally. If you want to buy green, buy British. But of course you'll never see that in The Guardian because it sounds jingoistic, and God forbid they ever endorse the hard-working farmers of this country. All you'll ever see is the government taxing them to death, like they're going to do to you if you drive a diesel motor, whilst we strip mine half of Africa for the minerals to make the batteries for electric cars. You need to realise the Guardian have lied to you, the BBC are actively lying to you, and the government has lied to you. You want green energy? You need nuclear power stations. You want to reduce your individual carbon footprint? Driving's not going to make much of a difference. Not buying cheap tat on Temu from China that needs to be shopped halfway across the world and is manufactured in terrible conditions using coal-fired power stations and strip mining minerals and materials to do so, that makes a difference. Speaking of things that have been rogered by our glorious government, not only farmers, it would appear, are in line for Rogering under Keir Starmer's Labour Party. Let's move on to our next story, and something that I think we can all hopefully agree is a disturbing trend in the country and something that is unseemly all round. So first, our great champion of the working classes, socialist leader, rogered the pensioners good and proper by cutting their winter fuel allowance, once again showing Labour's utter and complete disregard for the most vulnerable in our society. I mean, God, the Tories were awful, but at least they let the old folks keep the fire on a little longer in winter. Not content, of course, with just screwing the old folks out of their winter fuel payments, Keir and Rachel went back for a second bite of the cherry and let down the WASPy women, despite their election pledge to make sure that they wouldn't screw them over the pension age of retirement. So well done once again. The Labour Party go after the most vulnerable in society and give them a bloody good rogering at the expense of... Well, at the expense of who? Which leads us on to the question, bearing all that in mind, is there anybody Keir won't fuck? Well, I can tell you someone he certainly will fuck, and that's his cousin. So Labour Party have gone out of their way to shoot down a proposed members' bill banning first cousin marriage. Now let's be very clear. In the opinion of this newscaster, and almost every normal person in Western society, first cousin marriage is disgusting, creepy, and wrong. It has potentially horrific outcomes for children born to first cousins. They are potentially subject to any number of inheritable cognitive and degenerative diseases, and the chances that they will live their lives in pain, misery, or anguish dealing with significant medical complaints are very significantly higher than those in the rest of the general population. And of course, speaking of the general population, with all of those health complications, of course, comes a significant impact on the NHS, with our ability to look after our everyday normal citizens impaired with the extra health and support that we would need to give those products of incest. And that's before we get on to the low IQ, violent behaviours, and other long list of destructive personality traits that can, again, be the result of incestuous relationships. Let's be frank, people, The Hills Have Eyes was based on a true story. Why is Keir doing this? We don't know. The head of our investigative research department, Tim, had a very long look the other day, and as far as we can tell, Keir doesn't have any particularly attractive cousins. But what he does have is form for covering up unseemly behaviour from certain segments of our population. So let's just say, I wish this wasn't par for the course, Keir, but unfortunately we both know it is. Taking a break from the Labour Party, but continuing this week's theme of useless eco-activism, where you're lied to and things actually get worse, Bristol is having an existential crisis due to their brand new Green Council trying to implement schemes for one of the brand shiny new livable cities. This is a plan, in case you weren't aware, whereby you pedestrianise an area, chop off all of your road access, move public amenities around, make it nigh on impossible to get anywhere you want to go, make driving a car to get to the supermarket or the shops even more difficult, limiting consumer choice and consumer mobility, all in the name of reducing our country's carbon footprint, which this year will be less than 0.1% of total global emissions. Local businesses within the area are almost universally reporting a massive decrease in trade. Funny that, when people find it harder to get to you, you sell less things. Residents are reporting they feel a lot less safe in the area, particularly after dark. Funny that, when you create a pedestrianised area with very little through traffic and lots of alleyways and places for muggers to hide, people feel less safe walking around at night. Who would have thought? Almost anyone that does actually drive a car and needs to do something productive with it, like take their kids to school or go to the shops or, God forbid, actually go to work, is having an emotional breakdown. As one woman reported, it took her 17 minutes just to get off of her drive as nobody would let her out due to them tinkering with all of the roadworks in an attempt to get people to leave their cars at home. When pressed for comment, on behalf of the Green Party, the head of Bristol Council said, and I quote, "It's getting really, really frustrating. People just aren't helping." Yeah, by the people, for the people. Not in Bristol. And in our final catch-up of the week, scientists believe that they have found a formula that lets them pick the perfect or the most handsome dog. And according to science, the most handsome dog is the Cairn Terrier. I'm here to tell you the Cairn Terrier is not the most handsome dog. The most handsome dog is Steve, our newshound. Steve was unfortunately unable to join me in the studio today as he is currently away supervising our owner Sir Royston and flirting with our weather girl Ellie. If you think I'm wrong and if you think science is wrong, bear in mind we both very may well be, please feel free to comment the most handsome dog below or send us a picture to our email address and we'll put him up on our Twitter going forward. This has been the weekly review. We've been the News in Shorts. I've been VP. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.